Welcome to the Stack Supplement Podcast, the premier source for supplement news and reviews.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Stack Supplement Podcast, where we go over all of the big announcements and breaking news stories shared on our site from the past 7 days, obviously from the supplement industry. And while we didn't quite have as many big stories as we had in past weeks, there were a number of heavy hitters and big announcements made that certainly made the week what it was and definitely kept things interesting and exciting. The first of which what we're going to go over is comes from the Russian company Bomba, and it was actually they actually did something quite interesting or quite intriguing with their line. If you've followed our site and Bomba specifically and seen their updates, typically they're about Chica, which is their functional food brand, their spin-off brand, kind of like Outright was originally as MTS, although it's more of its own brand now. But this past week we saw an announcement from Bomba for both its regular lineup of products and its main and Chica Lab as per usual. The announcement from Bomba was quite an interesting product. While I know I've seen companies do stuff like this before, I have never seen someone who makes supplements do this before. And basically Bomba, who as mentioned is a very big company, very popular brand out in Russia, they put together what was probably one of the most real food snacks you're going to come across. And I'm not talking nut butter, protein sources. They came out with a jar of chicken breast. And again, this is as real food as it gets. It's just, as it says, chicken breast. It comes in two flavors. There's regular, which original is what they call it, and I believe the other one's curry flavored, and they call the original classic. And yeah, it is just a little jar with 250 grams of chicken. And of course, being chicken, the profile on this one is pretty lean, with 50 grams of protein per pot, just 6 grams of fat, practically no carbs with 1/4 gram, and with the calories being as lean as chicken. So I mean, it's essentially just a chicken snack. I thought it was very interesting. I mean, it's definitely not your typical protein bar or protein chip, but I mean, it's something I hadn't seen before from a company who puts together, general supplements and functional stuff. So it was cool to see them do that. But as mentioned, we saw two announcements from Bomba last week. One for the regular line and one for Chica Lab, and the Chica Lab one was a little more interesting. They announced, if you can go back, I think it might be in a couple weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, the company introduced a product called Chica Sport. Now, Chica Sport is their block of chocolate, basically a block of sugar-free chocolate, high in protein, I believe no added sugar. And it was teased at the start of the year, and they gave it away as a prize. They didn't really make it available for purchase, and just recently they did just that. They made it available finally for purchase through their Russian website, and then just a short time after releasing that product this past week, they welcomed 3 new flavors to the product. Originally you could only get it in milk chocolate, so it was just a solid block of chocolate. This past week they introduced 3 new flavors for Chica Sport, all of which are filled with nuts. So it's still that same solid milk chocolate thickness and base, with nuts sprinkled throughout. And the 3 different flavors, again, still have that milk chocolate, but the reason they're different flavors is because they use different nuts. You have peanuts, hazelnuts, and almonds. So it's a very similar nutrition profile to the regular version. I think it's 21 grams of protein, or 20 to 21, with a relatively low, around 10 grams of carbs. High fat, of course. It is a big block of chocolate, and they do use some solid ingredients, and the fat is pretty high, with about twice as much fat as you get protein. But obviously the point here is that it tastes amazing. With the calorie count, I believe, quite a bit above 500, somewhere like 520, 540. And that varies, of course, depending on the flavor and the nuts. But it's pretty cool to see them expand that thing so fast, especially since when they launched Chica Sport, even when they mentioned it at the start of the year, and then they launched it not that long ago, they made no mention that they were going to drop 3 more flavors. So it was a pretty cool surprise, especially for fans to see a company just drop a product and then just blow it up even more. The next story we're going to touch on keeps us in the protein snack market with another company out of Europe, and that is Morphogen Nutrition, who based in Germany. They introduced a new protein bar, and this thing looks, while I hate to judge things on pictures because pictures are obviously all about marketing and they show you what they want to show you, this protein bar looks pretty damn delicious. And the macros and the ingredients suggest it is going to be pretty damn delicious. So Morphogen Nutrition introduced what they've called the Joker protein bar. And if I recall correctly, on Instagram, they were kind of promoting it as a very Mars-like protein snack. So not too surprisingly, it is a caramel layer inside with a milk chocolate outer, much like a Mars bar. And but obviously, being that we're talking about the health industry here, it is high in protein. So you get 15 grams per bar, with the other macros being relatively light as well. 17 grams of carbs, just 1.6 of sugar, just over 6 of fat, and 180 calories. So while you don't get that typical 20 grams of protein per bar, you said you get 15, the calories are still quite lower than your typical protein bar that has 20 grams. You're looking at, it would probably work out to be, 240, give or take 240 calories if you were to scale that bar up to match a 20 gram protein bar. So if you had one of these and another third, you get your 20 grams of protein for 240 calories. But as I mentioned, the taste on this thing is meant to be amazing. In fact, the brand itself says right on the front of the package, too good to be a protein bar. Now, while a lot of companies do make that claim, several have made that claim, several have said, many have not delivered, I'm intrigued by this one because Europe are very well known for their functional foods, especially great tasting ones. Morphogen Nutrition as well. They make a lot of great tasting products. And this is heavily promoted for flavor. And more importantly, it doesn't have that 20 grams of protein. And while that may not be great for people who want 20 grams of protein per bar, it's pretty good if you're just looking for a light, healthy, high-protein snack because, in my experience, the lower the protein, the better the taste. Obviously, the less ingredients you have to mask, the harder it is to do, the better it is to flavor. And this is at 15. So, to be honest, I'm very intrigued to see how well this one goes. It doesn't have a super high amount of sugar, but I would be inclined to think that if it's not too good to be a protein bar, it's probably up there. But you can check out that product on our site. It just launched in Germany. I believe they ship throughout Europe. I'm not entirely certain on that, but it's not too expensive either if you're buying direct from the brand's website. Moving from Europe back to to the US, the major US marketplace, we saw some pretty big news from PES Science, or we just call them PES, this past week. Who they're a bit of a silent killer, a silent giant. They tend to not make too much noise. Launches come along, make some noise, and to be honest, I've said this several times to several people. PES is one of my go-to brands, my personal go-to brands. I use them. I buy stacks from them, several. I actually have one ordered, and I'm pretty sure it's in the cupboard. They're a reliable brand to me. I mean, I've always used their supplements, and they've just got a great lineup. And this past week, they added a product that they didn't actually have before, so this is a new flavor. They entered the superfood category, or greens category. And in true PES style, they put their own little spin on it. They didn't just do, you get your superfoods, get your greens. Like with a lot of their supplements, they teamed this one with a thorough explanation and thought process. So the product is named very simply Greens and Superfoods because that's what's in it, greens and superfoods. Now, where the difference comes in is, as they explained it, the greens in the supplement, they took the approach. They wanted to know, or they wanted to see why people took greens and what they were looking for in greens, and they wanted to kind of give back, the category, give back to their fans and consumers, something that I guess they didn't have out there, they couldn't find, at least something different than your typical green supplement. And so the point of difference with this one is that, and they make it clear in their marketing, they make it clear in their images and their pages and all that jazz, is the PES superfood supplement is made with freeze-dried greens. and that is a very different process than your typical air-dried or drum-dried. So the process basically keeps a lot more of the micronutrients intact. It's free, as per the name, it's freeze-dried instead of hung out to dry kind of thing. And as they put it, just left to, just left to dry. And the premium process that they take, or the superior process that they call it, obviously keeps all those micronutrients intact. And it is a much more expensive process. And so they've taken this approach because a lot of the time, well, majority of green supplements, they say, don't use this process. A lot of them use the typical air and drum dried. And so, again, they wanted to set themselves apart. I think this is a pretty interesting way to go about it. And they managed to convince you, or at least not convince you, but educate you on why theirs is different, what makes it different. And they even say, unless a product says freeze-dried greens on its label, it's not using freeze-dried greens. So it's a very, as per usual, PES just does a great job at educating their consumer, educating people on what they've done with their latest and greatest. So each serving comes with 2.2 grams of greens. It's a blend of greens, and they specifically try to stick with a more simplistic blend. Instead of like a huge variety, they've gone for a lot of more important ones, so you get like big amounts of these greens. It comes with wheatgrass, kale, spinach, Brussels sprouts, and broccoli. So they've got a lot of the big ones in there. And yeah, so it's a very interesting take. But alongside that, they've also thrown in a mushroom extract blend. And then you also get, for antioxidants, the premium Spectra fruits and greens blend at 100 milligrams. So yeah, it's simplistic but interesting and different at the same time. And that's kind of what PES is one of the things they're pretty damn good at. And best of all, the product isn't actually all that expensive. While Primeval just introduced a green supplement that was relatively cost effective, PES Sciences, despite that, that marketing and pointing out that the freeze dries process is more premium and more bioavailable, just a better process than the typical air and drum dried. Their product isn't too badly priced. It's at $24.99 direct, and that's the regular price on their site. And they launched it with a coupon code that got it down to $21.25. So for a bag of 30 servings, it's pretty interesting, and it's a cool approach, because with that angle that they explained, you kind of expected it to be quite up there, quite expensive, but that wasn't actually the case. Even in fact, after reading through the information, I was like, this is going to be, up there with Ghost Greens, up there with Core Greens. But it wasn't. And again, the formula has remained quite simple. It doesn't come with, any added probiotics, any digestive enzymes. They've kept it kind of not simple, but just focused and a very clear point. So you can check that on the site. I don't know if their sale is still running. If this podcast goes up on Monday, which I believe it should, you might still be able to take advantage of it. But go to the site, check out the link, and we've got details on how to use that coupon code and everything else. The next brand we're going to talk about is another very reliable, one of the most reliable brands out there, and that's Morphogen Nutrition. Now, we never kind of followed them in 2019, but I heard they have a phenomenal year. And when I got put onto them in the last 2 months of the year, and I started following them and started seeing what they were doing and started looking at their products, I'm like, holy shit, these guys are serious, man. They put together some solid formulas, and they're not. I'm not talking like $30 pre-workouts. They're putting some loaded stuff together for very specific categories. They just dropped a kidney support supplement. They obviously have a GDA. They have a stim-free weight loss. They have a protein. They got probably one of the more premium advanced lineups you can find, similar to Galaxin, with a little more detail. Like I said, like the kidney support supplement. But yeah, this past week they entered the vegan protein category, which I guess is a little more mainstream, a little more typical than the specific stuff that you see from them. But they, like a lot of their products, much like I was saying with PES, they do put together things with a nice point of difference, with a nice highlight. And the approach they took on this one, as someone mentioned to me, is very similar to Ambrosia's popular plant protein. So what they did is Morphogen Nutrition. Sorry, I should mention that their vegan protein powder is called Vegagen. And so what they did is they combined transparently dosed protein sources. I believe it's something like 20 grams per serving, and you get 18 or so from pea protein and 6.3 from brown rice, and obviously you yield that 20 grams of protein total. But what makes this thing so interesting and so different is that in addition to those plant protein sources, is that they've added in a gram of BCAAs, vegan-friendly BCAAs. And the point of that was, and they did a good job, much like PES did a good job with highlighting what made their product so different. Morphogen highlighted what makes this different and why they added the BCAAs. And so the point was is they wanted to add that amount so that the EAA profile, as well as the BCAAs and content that you get from those protein sources, is brought up to be a lot more like whey protein. So the idea was you get the benefits of being plant-based, vegan-friendly, but with the benefit of whey and getting that amount of BCAAs from a scoop. In fact, the amount of BCAAs you get per scoop of protein from Morphogen's own isolate formula is less than the amount of BCAAs you get from its vegan protein, Vegagen. Now, obviously, those aren't bonded aminos, if you can follow on that one. So proteins are made up of bonded amino acids, and when you add them in, those are free-form amino acids. But yeah, so they added them in to kind of bring up that BCAA balance, that BCAA completeness, which those protein sources lack, to just make it a more comprehensive protein powder, which is something that a lot of people mention when it comes to plant-based protein powders. But so they could bring it up, and you wouldn't basically need to worry too much about that. And again, you'd get the power of the brand's own whey isolate, but in vegan-friendly form, which I thought was a very cool concept. And again, it's something we'd seen Ambrosia do with Planter, but they just communicated it very well as well. He lays it out, the brand lays it out, mentions it's on the page, tells you why they did it, and it's just cool. And another interesting fact is that I don't know how good it tastes. I'm always very picky with vegan proteins. I don't know how good this one tastes. It's available in Snickerdoodle and Almond Bliss flavors, but another highlight for this one is the price on it. The price on it is pretty damn good, considering you've got that nice premium explanation of BCAAs infused with the vegan-friendly protein sources. They've done a really good value. It's $48 per tub. That's before any discount. But you don't get 20 servings or 30. You get 38. And so if you compare that to something like, I think Ghost Vegan is 40, 45. I'm pretty sure it's 45. And they have 30 servings or maybe even 28 for the same amount of protein. So you get more servings from this. And you get the same amount of protein per serving. And the price isn't too far off. It does work out to be more cost effective than Ghost Vegan, as well as Nutrix's plant protein, which are two we rate quite highly in terms of taste. So yeah, it was pretty cool to see that brand, and as mentioned, we only just started following them, but I'm just so glad we were put onto them last year, because they just kill it. They just do a great job with each product, and you're never disappointed with the formula. If you've yet to check them out, go to their site, just run through their lineup. They are a little on the premium, more expensive side, but when you get to, when you're talking about advanced supplements like this, like loaded pre-workouts, like loaded pump pre-workouts, like kidney support supplements and GDAs, you're obviously not going to be paying your typical $30 price tag. But yeah, I would definitely suggest checking them out if you haven't already. The next brand we're going to go on is, we've got 3 stories to round out the episode. And the first of the 3 is Core Nutritionals, who we've probably mentioned 2,000 times on this damn podcast, because he's had something exciting to share every damn week, it seems. And those guys are they've been extremely impressive this year. And I don't re-listen to these episodes, so I've probably said this 1,000 times over. But yeah, they just continue to kill it week after week with at least another product, another teaser, another confirmation. And so Core announced that they are rebranding their Fat Burner Core Burn X. Now, Core Burn X, as you will know if you follow Stack, that's our number one rated fat burner. The thing kills it. It's great energy, great results, great thermo, great focus. It's just one of the best and most comprehensive fat burners out there. Hence why we crowned it number one on our list of top 5 products. So yeah, they are rebranding it like they're doing with the rest of their lineup. However, unlike with Core Fury, or even Core Pump or Core Pro or Core ISO, they are not making any changes to the formula. They are keeping it intact. They are keeping that number one rated formula intact, which I think is great, because that means, obviously means we'll keep it on the list because you get the exact same benefits, results, and whatnot. And the only addition that this new version is going to bring is that they're going to drop the X and just go back to calling it Core Burn. They're also going to add a new flavor with pineapple colada, which is apparently amazing, although I had no issues with the original too. And they are adding it to their vegan-friendly series. And this is the new series from Paul Revelia, who was a long-time athlete, a long-time ambassador of Cause. And it'll be one of the first 2 products in the vegan-friendly series, which is called the PR series for short for Paul Revelia. And the other product that's going to be in there is, of course, the vegan protein, which I believe we mentioned on this podcast. And Core claims is going to be the best tasting vegan protein on the market. And you can bet your money I'm going to be putting that one to the test, because I have full confidence they'll do it, but I'm known to get my hopes up on products. And while on the topic of Core, they did also announce 4 new simple supplements, single ingredient supplements for their lineup. If you're a Core fan, you'll know that while they do complex stuff like Core Fury, Core ABC, they also have a series of basic supplements called Core Commodities, and that consists of things like 5-AT, acetyl L-carnitine, and so they announced they've got 4 new additions to that lineup, all single ingredient formulas. There'll be vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and then pregnenolone, which is the standout ingredient that really kind of set Core Fury apart from, I guess, all pre-workouts, because I don't recall, and they mentioned I've never seen anyone use it in a pre-workout. But so they're bringing that out in a standalone formula. It'll be dosed slightly higher than what you get in Core Fury. Instead of 10 milligrams per serving in Core Fury, the standalone pregnenolone product will have 25 milligrams. So you get quite a bit more on that one, and those products are very much coming soon. The second to last story we have comes from Mark Lobliner and Outright. Now, Mark Lobliner recently confirmed that he's got just a bunch of new flavors coming, just a whole bunch. One of those ones that was confirmed in previous weeks is Creamy Red Velvet, for his regular, the flagship Outright protein bar, one of the original Real Food protein bars. And he said when he announced Creamy Red Velvet that he had a lot more coming, and we were quite excited because with all the additions, all the flavors he already has, you have to imagine that there's going to be some spin-offs, some interesting, intriguing flavors in that lineup. There's not really much more you can do with new flavors since he already has so many. And this past week, as we hoped, Mark Lobliner announced one of those other upcoming products outside of Creamy Red Velvet, and it is indeed a spin-off of the Outright protein bar with the Outright breakfast bar. Now, from what I understand it, the approach is similar to the other Outright protein bar flavors. Peanut butter base, solid 15 grams of protein, whole food, no sugar alcohols. But it's got a breakfast theme to it. It's mochaccino white chocolate is the flavor. And another interesting detail that I thought was just I don't know, I want to say that he's the first to do this because I know there's been someone else that couldn't come to mind, but he's infused this one with a velocitol, which is a muscle protein synthesis enhancing ingredient. Commonly promoted, you might have seen it on bottles where they say double the power of your protein. So this basically doubles the muscle protein synthesis of the protein it's used with, basically. And so he's put that in the new breakfast Outright protein bar, which I thought was quite interesting and a neat angle. I'd be curious as to what it tastes like and if there's any other things that make it a breakfast bar, like if he's got added caffeine or like natural coffee in there. More details on that will be soon, but that's just one of many new products coming for the Outright family. As mentioned, the Creamy Red Velvet's the other one, and he's got a few more. I think he has at least 5 or more So definitely stay tuned for details on that. And the last story we have is quite an exciting one. Much like with Ghost Greens, if you remember last year, Ghost Greens was confirmed in January. It's a very, very long time ago, and that product only just hit the market last month. Now, back when we confirmed Ghost Greens back in January, we also confirmed Ghost Gamer. Now, Ghost Gamer is, of course, Ghost gaming supplement designed to help your gaming performance with benefits such as energy, focus, and cognition. That product finally got revealed, finally got announced this past week, and not only did we get a look at, we had already seen the label, but we got a look at the formula. And in typical Ghost style, they've pulled together a pretty solid formula. They haven't overdosed it on caffeine. You get 150 milligrams per serving, so it's a nice amount, the amount I prefer, in fact, to work, to study, to game, to be productive. And they've thrown in a bunch of other cognitive focus ingredients. You've got cognizant citicola at I think it's 500 milligrams, which is not a dose I've seen from any other brand. I actually looked this one up of Cognizant, and I was like, because they said no one uses that amount. Double checked. The only brand I could find had it at 400, so that is indeed true. And they've also got New Level, which is an ingredient you may remember. ProSup's put in their new version of Dr. Jekyll last year. Pretty sure it was last year, start of last year. And they've got the same maximum dose that ProSup's used in this with 1.6 grams per max serving. And then there's also tyrosine in there. So it's a very focus-powered energy boosting formula, pretty much what you'd want for gaming, with obviously, just a very heavy focus on the cognition focus and reaction kind of mental side of things. And it's a pretty cool formula, and I'm interested to see how it fares. I'm a big fan of products that you use for things like gaming and just work and general productivity. I think we're getting it in. I'm interested to see how it compares. I've always, to be honest, preferred standard, solid focus supplements like nootropics. Gaming supplements, kind of, they're very similar. Their intentions are the same. But Ghost wanted to, I guess, focus more on that focus side of things and reaction side of things and brain function and all that. So it's it'd be interesting to see how it fares. I'll probably compare it for gaming, for work, for productivity, see how it goes. But you can check it out in more detail on the site. It will be launching in 3 flavors. There'll be peach as well as 2 authentic flavors. Both you've seen from Ghost before. There'll be an official authentic Sour Patch Kids Red Berry, and then there'll be a Warheads Sour Watermelon. And the product's launching for $39.99. So it is a pretty good price, especially when you compare it to other gaming supplements out there, similar to like Sneak and G Fuel. G Fuel, I think, sits at $35, $36. And these guys are just, like I said, $40. And you get 20 full servings per tub. So, you can check that on the site. I believe launch on that's coming soon, just based on the fact they've dropped so much information. But that is this week's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to come back next week, and we are working on several interviews to come during the week. So thank you, and see you then.